Lisa Graves is with us with prwatch.org. She is the executive director of the Center for Media and Democracy, PR Watch, and Twitter at PR Watch. Lisa, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having us on.
Oh, thanks for joining us. Tell us, the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. I think most Americans don't have a clue what ALEC is.
Right. I think the only ALEC they know may be Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
And we have a new site called ALEC Expose, and it's not about exposing Alec Baldwin. It's about exposing the corporate voting and corporate influence on our elected officials through this organization called the American Legislative Exchange Council, which describes itself as one of the largest membership organizations of state legislators. Yet almost all of its funding comes from everything but dues from these legislators. 98% of its funding comes from corporations, corporate foundations, and other sources other than these legislators.
And basically billionaires.
What it primarily is doing is providing a vehicle for corporations to sit as equals on ALEC task forces, pre-approving bills that are later introduced in your legislatures across the country without any mention that corporations voted on them or that ALEC was involved in any way.
Now, let me get this straight. I've got a business. It's this radio show and our TV show. And if my business was big enough and profitable enough and megalomaniacal enough, and I gave enough money to ALEC, I could sit in a room with a bunch of state legislators from whatever state I wanted to pick or from all over the country, and I could help propose legislation for them to introduce, and I could vote on whether or not I liked it?
If you shared ALEC's values and you paid their fees, which range from $7,000 to $25,000 a year, plus an additional fee for a seat on one of these ALEC task forces, you could sit in the room side by side with legislators.
Wow, that's not that much money. $25,000. I mean, it's in the world of corporate America, that's not a lot of cash. I'm surprised that progressive business owners haven't started infiltrating this. Or what's the fee to have a seat at the table?
Well, it depends. As I said, it's between $7,000 and $25,000 for the initial membership, and then it's an additional $2,500 to $10,000 for a seat on one of these task forces. You're right; it's a pittance to corporate America. It would barely even make their financial forms. It's so small compared to what they spend on lobbying overall.
Right. So,
but ordinary Americans, it would price the rest of us out of being at the table.
Right. Well, if I was in a I mean that's an amount of money that even most small businesses in America could probably write off as an ordinary cost of business over the course of a year if they were at all profitable, if they're doing well. So let me get this straight. If I'm in Washington D.C., so it really doesn't work for me here because this is not a state and we don't have representation, we don't have a legislature. But if I was back in Portland where I used to live, or if I lived in Vermont where I used to live, or if I lived in Atlanta where I used to live, or Michigan where I grew up, or New Hampshire where I used to live. If I lived in any of those states, I could, for about $25,000, maybe $35,000 at the very most, as a business owner, coming out of my business, and I'm guessing I could probably even deduct this as a tax-deductible expense. Maybe not, I don't know. But I could buy a seat and I could propose legislation that would give a, say, $70,000 a year tax exemption or maybe even a subsidy to talk radio shows that are in that state. And then I could say to all those legislators who show up, you will vote for this, and then I would invest $35,000 and I'd make $70,000 back.
Well, you'd probably make a whole lot more than that if you were permitted to be approved by the sort of governing forces at ALEC to be a member, and if your fellow corporations that are on these task forces have basically approached this as a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, I'll go along with your legislation to privatize prisons, privatize schools, privatize everything else, as long as you go along with my legislation to give benefits to talk radio hosts.
So to get my talk show host subsidy, I'd have to sell my soul.
Well,
there's a moral cost as well as a financial cost.
Right, because the fact is that over 800 bills, in fact more than that over history, have been produced through this process by ALEC, which is a process by which these corporations sit as equal members of these task forces with ALEC legislators. And while they talk a good game on federalism and states' rights, this is an effort to basically enact a nationwide agenda that's the same in every state, state by state, through these legislators. These legislators are part-time legislators. They have hardly any staff. And so ALEC, in essence, sees itself as providing them the staff that they don't have by giving them so-called model bills, which are really wish lists that corporations have already pre-voted on with legislators. Legislators vote, corporations vote. ALEC approves them, the ALEC board approves them, and then they come out to your legislatures across the country without any mention that they were already voted on by corporations.
You know, back in I think it was 32, 33, 34, right around that time, Benito Mussolini dissolved Parliament in Italy and replaced it with, forgive my poor Italian, the Cameo de Fascisio Corporaciones, the Chamber of the Fascist Corporations. And basically what it was if your county used to send a representative to Parliament by popular election, now the largest corporation in your county decided who the representative was going to be and picked them. And this system of governance that Mussolini invented, where each of the what used to be elected representatives were now representatives of the largest corporations in each of the political regions of Italy, was this merger of business and government he called fascism. How is this different?
Well, you know, you raise an excellent question. I think a lot of Americans are going to be asking that very question, because the fact is that ALEC has created a structure in which legislators in each state serve as the state chairman. And as state chairman, they have they're the public chairman, and then they have a private sector chairman who no one knows who it is. In your state, you have no idea who this corporate co-chairman is.
So every state has a shadow government.
Right, you don't know who they are, and they serve as partners. What they do in the state is they work to ensure that the ALEC legislation is introduced. It's described as a duty for state chairmen to get this legislation introduced in the states. And one of the duties of the legislator, who's a state chairman of ALEC, is to work with his private sector co-chair to raise money for so-called scholarships, not because legislators are good students, but scholarships to basically fund their trips to these ALEC trips, these ALEC events, these ALEC conventions, like the one coming up in New Orleans next week. And one of the most outrageous things of all is that some of these legislators, they pay only $50 to be a member of ALEC. Some of them have the taxpayer pay that for them. And some of them go to these ALEC events on the taxpayer's dime if they're not going on the corporation's dime.
Amazing.
So it really is what ALEC calls a synergistic, that's their word,
synergy. Yeah. Lisa, we just have about 40 seconds left. Is this largely partisan? Are ALEC legislators typically one party or the other, or is it bipartisan?
Well, they describe themselves as nonpartisan. They say they're open to any members of any party, but the fact is their leadership is 103 Republicans, 1 Democrat.
Yeah, I would say that
leadership.
That's amazing. And this is all at the state level. This is not federal level stuff.
Well, there are ALEC bills that have been introduced at the federal legislature, and John Boehner and Eric Cantor are 2 ALEC alums.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
So it's incredible. And people can learn all about this at prwatch.org or
ALECexposed.org.
ALECexposed.org. Excuse me. ALEC, ALEC, exposed.org. Lisa Graves, the Executive Director of the Center for Media and Democracy. Lisa, you're brilliant. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Tom.
Much appreciated. Okay, I got to figure out how to get myself a membership to this thing. We got to start this talk radio subsidy. You know, if the oil companies can get it, why can't I?